Today, our webinar is entitled The Art of Entrepreneurship with our guest Heidi Vaughan of Heidi Vaughan Fine Art. She has a gallery located here in the Houston area. She's also the chairperson of the Houston. Now, forgive me if I mispronounce this. Am I? Tell me. Let you introduce yourself. Heidi, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, Jada. I'm so delighted to be on your podcast. I'm Heidi Vaughan. I own Heidi Vaughan Fine Art, which is an art gallery at 3510 Lake Street, which is one block west of Kirby near Richmond in Houston's oldest gallery row. It's a group of galleries that's been there since the 1970s, which for Houston is actually pretty old. And I am chairman of the Houston Arts Foundation. Since 1965, the Houston Arts Foundation has paid for the conservation and restoration of some of Houston's most iconic public works of art. I can't help but notice I have a Luis Jimenez behind me, and there's a Luis Jimenez Vaquero sculpture in Moody Park, the Tolerance sculptures in Buffalo Bayou Park, Gandhi in Herman Park, the Sam Houston Monument in Herman Park. So we make sure that those monuments stay looking great. I'm also a credentialed fine art appraiser with the International Society of Appraisers. My program at my gallery is I represent Houston-based artists who are at the museum level. They are artists whose work is in museums and who have, some of them even have museum solo shows, including my current show, which I hope we'll get to talk about.
Yes.
And I liquidate fine art assets. So I work with some of the most well-known collectors in Houston. If they have art to sell for whatever reason, it's actually a huge part of my business. Sometimes I work at the very high end doing that kind of work. My top three sales exceed 6 million.
Wow.
Yeah, art can definitely be an asset. That's something that I talk about a lot. So that's who I am.
Wow. Wow. I mean, so impressive. And we've known each other for what, maybe 3 or 4 years
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
and have grown and developed your business as it relates to your gallery and representing artists in the Houston area and beyond. Some fascinating stories that you've told me, and please feel free to share any story that you have. Fascinating stories of how you've helped artists all over the world, honestly. Tell me a little bit about your background.
Oh, sure. So I've been an art collector since the 80s. I actually have an undergraduate degree. I did study art history as an undergrad, but I have a degree in journalism. I have a show, a broadcast, not a podcast, called The Houston Hour. It airs Wednesdays at noon on 9.1 KPFT Houston, which is a public radio station here in Houston. And on that show, the first half an hour is an arts related guest. It could be anyone from a visual artist, opera singer, ballerina, art patron, arts organization. I interview a lot of curators. And then the second half an hour is what we call a Houston history guest or Houston legend. Some of my favorite interviews have included Mattress Mac. We've interviewed Phoebe Tudor about historic preservation, restaurant owners, that sort of thing, architects. It's a really great show. And I didn't get into working professionally in art until around 2008, 2009. I lived abroad for many years and was fortunate to get to look at art all over the world. And then when my children were adults, I started exploring what I could do professionally with art. I got a graduate degree in art history from the University of Houston, which I think they have a terrific program. I've done professional projects for the Menil Collection, the Museum of Fine Arts, and the Blaffer Art Museum. So I come with a pretty solid background. I also have a background in marketing from years living and working in Chicago, representing big brands that are based in the Midwest, including corporate McDonald's, uh, National Gatorade, National SC Johnson Wax in Racine, Wisconsin, a lot of those kinds of things. So people come in and wonder if I'm an artist. I'm not an artist. I don't want to be an artist. I don't make art, but I love the business of art and I love everything about art. And so that's my background.
Oh, the business of art. I love that. And our title today is the art of entrepreneurship.
I love the
And
title. Love that title.
well, and as a score, we try to help as many business owners as possible, those who are aspiring, those who have a concept, and those who are currently in business. And we don't want to leave out the artists because, even though it is a passion, it is something that you do, a talent that you either, have acquired or have cultivated. There's a business to it, especially if you want to sell it. Now, there's some artists that, that's just hands off. They don't sell any of their work, but they're
Well,
still
I would say, if you'll let me interrupt,
sure.
what it takes to be good at making art and what it takes to be good at selling art are two radically different skill sets.
Hmm.
And I think an artist who does not have any kind of representation, it comes up often, do you need representation to be a successful artist? And I would say in most instances you do
Hmm.
because a different skill set. And I can talk about an artist in front of them in a way that if they talked about themselves that way to a client, they would look incredibly boastful or arrogant. And what I'm saying is true. It's just sort of like you can't call yourself a genius, you know?
Yeah.
But someone else can call you one,
Hmm.
and it's a great thing. Art is a huge business. I
Hmm.
hate the notion of a starving artist. You
Hmm.
absolutely do not need to be that.
Hmm.
Plenty of people have been successful throughout history, going back to the Renaissance, the earliest records I'm aware of when businesses really started keeping records that the public could later access about, contracts and prices and all that kind of stuff. But UBS Bank, Bank of America, two very established banks in the world have two of the largest art collections in the world.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
art is really an alternate asset class.
Hmm.
It can, if you buy the right art, it has the potential to hold value and even in some cases increase in value. I have all kinds of stories about things I've been involved with personally with art that was purchased at a particular price and sold later at a much higher price, which isn't to say that most art does that. Most art doesn't do that. But one thing like this work of art behind me, for example, this is a super established artist. This work of art by Luis Jimenez will always have value because it's by
Hmm.
Luis Jimenez. I could go into a whole bunch of reasons why, but if an artist's career isn't managed properly, the odds of them having like long-term success are lower.
Mm, I see. I see. It's impressive how you are able to represent an artist, and like you said, is a unique skill set that most creatives shy away from. And then if they do actually get into business for themselves, then untangling all of the business aspects. Now, I serve as an accountant, so I know that, those are some of the things that people shy away from. Many businesses do. They leave it, to individuals that do it on a normal basis. So your business, your gallery helps artists, and you said typically there are established artists that
Yeah,
you
yeah.
assist.
I have represented a few younger artists, what they call emerging artists.
Hmm.
And in my personal experience, I've made a big investment in them, introducing them to collectors and buyers and helping build a market for them. Takes time and takes money. And I have found, I've represented some younger artists who quit after the first show and or one artist got New York representation and resigned from the gallery. And so I made the investment that got them to a certain point, and then they quit on me, and I found it emotionally painful as well as I made a bad financial choice in working with them because they didn't stick with me. Plenty of artists have representation at galleries around the world, and I represent artists who have other representation besides just me. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
some of the largest, most successful galleries in the world don't allow artists to have other representation, and they don't need it because they're
Mm-hmm.
at some place like Pace or Hauser and Wirth, or these super established galleries that take care of them around the world. But for most artists, and the ones at the level that I represent, they can have multiple galleries. So, but I find that the younger artists, it's just a different mindset, a different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just different, and it's
So,
an investment.
so it's a lot of steps before you get to a certain level of having your art to be represented by an organization. Are there um, maybe foundational organizations that can uh, teach artists how to get to the level of representation?
One of the artists that I represent, who is he's done a lot of public art, but he hasn't done so much art, for individual collectors. And he recently told me that he'd been taking a class put on by another art advisor, not in Texas, about how to get gallery representation and how to put on shows. And I thought that was very interesting because I hadn't heard
Mhm.
of that before. I think it's probably not a bad idea. I could definitely I could teach a course like that. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, um, I'm getting off track.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure there's mentorship, and maybe at some of the educational institutions, they may have, mentors that can talk to individuals about
That's
artist development.
Yeah,
So what?
that's a huge part of the MFA. So some artists have an undergraduate degree in art, some artists don't have any degree in art, but most have training of
Mhm.
some sort. And when someone goes so far as to get a master's degree in fine art, that does come a lot with a lot of career guidance. There are other things beyond the master's degree here in Houston. There's programs, especially through the Museum of Fine Arts has an art school called the Glassell School, which is a very fine school, and they have the core program and the block program, and that sort of helps MFAs take it up to an even higher level. But that's also my job. I
Okay.
get my artists in museum collections and in important private collections and in important shows and things. And when you have an art advisor managing your career, that's a big goal. Like one of my idols is Maria Inez Siccardi. Uh, she's the founder of Siccardi Ayers Bacino on Alabama, right by the Menil Collection. She's probably placed more art in museum collections than any other dealer in Houston. I would guess it's probably very likely that she's done that. And that makes a huge difference for an artist. I give it to various audiences called the 10 Factors That Contribute to Value in Art. Uh,
Mhm.
for any collector who hasn't done a lot of collecting, like if you're looking at a work of art and it's got a certain price point, there are things that you should expect that artist has achieved. If someone is asking a price of a certain amount, like I would say, are they in museum collections? What important exhibitions have they been in? Are they in important books? Is there a documentary about them? Because those are the factors that very much influence value.
I see. I see. Now, before we get to that, what was the first transition from being an art enthusiast or an appraiser to founding Heidi Vaughan Fine Art? What was the moment you decided to organize your passion as a formal business?
What a great question.
Hmm.
So I had been sort of dabbling. I wasn't ready to work full time yet while my kids were still in high school. And I started an art related nonprofit that I thought I would build into something bigger for myself as time went on. But that ended up not being the right choice for me. And after a period of a few years, I walked away from that. And then when I was in grad school, my academic advisor had recommended I get my appraisal credentials
Mhm.
because there's a real need for that. Like I work with estates and law firms and things, and if someone dies and they leave behind an estate with a lot of art in it, someone has to be able to place a value on it. And I value art for other official reasons like insurance coverage and charitable
Mhm.
contributions. But so I thought I would just do that and was enjoying doing it. My first appraisal project that I did as a credentialed fine art appraiser was three objects of folk art for
Mhm.
someone's personal collection. And the second job I got, I think because I was so used to the corporate world and my background working with Burson Marsteller, Young and Rubicam and corporations, I heard when I was still in graduate school about an opportunity with British Petroleum. They
Mhm.
needed some help. They were liquidating fine art assets after the Deepwater Horizon tragedy. I ended up winning that job and helping them inventory and ultimately liquidate 1,427 works of art from their
Wow.
corporate collection. And that was only the
Mhm.
second thing I ever did as an appraiser.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so that sort of let me know that that was the universe telling me go that way. And then
Mhm.
someone talked me into the gallery, and it's one of those things. She had had a gallery in Houston for decades, and we were friends. And she said she always wanted to go in business with me. And I said, I think it would be really fun, but I don't want to risk my own personal money. I think it's
Mhm.
a really risky thing to do, having an art gallery. And she explained how hers had been so profitable for her for so long. And she talked me into it. She was going to be my silent financial partner. And I'd been working with my lawyer to create a business plan. And she led me all the way up to the point of signing the lease,
Mhm.
the gallery. We hadn't yet signed the contract on how the business was going to work financially, but we were well into discussions about it. And I, for reasons I don't know, felt confident moving
Mhm.
forward. And when it was time to sign the lease, she forgot that she had to go out of town. And so I went by myself and I signed the lease and I put down the money and I got working on the build out of the space. We had our first opening was going to be for Photo Fest in 2018. And she came back from her trip. I started some construction work. She was not happy with what I had done, and she treated me in a way that was unacceptable
Mhm.
and did it in front of other people who, after she left, they said you couldn't possibly be thinking about going into business with her. And I said, well, I am. And they
Mhm.
said, why would you do that? And I said, well, she's the money. And they said, someone said, how much money is she giving you? And I said, well, we've discussed it. She's kind of
Mhm.
bankrolling the whole thing. And uh, and then that person said, well, how much money do you have? And I said, well, I'm not telling you how much money I have. And he said, is it more than this amount? And I said, I have way more money than that amount. And he said, you should just, this was someone else who owned a gallery. And he said, you should just do it on your own. So when I got home, I called my lawyer and my lawyer said, I never liked her. I didn't,
Oh.
I remember her saying like after our meetings, like, does she know you're paying me by the hour?
Mhm.
And I don't know why I had confidence in her and why I let it get to that point, but I think higher forces
Mhm.
played in this. I think it was meant to be, but I ended up calling her up and telling her that I decided I didn't want a silent financial partner. So
Mhm.
how I ended up with a gallery.
Wow, that's a sound business decision. I'm seriously, I as a mentor and as a business owner myself, it's a very um, strategic and interesting path to have a partner. And it's almost like I explained to all of my clients, it's like being married. It's exactly like being married. And if you make those decisions, like you said, you did the business plan, you had your finances together, you make those decisions ahead of time, it could prevent, things from, going a different direction than you had planned, which you were able to do. With that understanding, um, you mentioned being a starving artist, that's not one thing that you like for artists to experience.
It makes
What
me cringe when I hear that expression.
really? Yeah. Well, what myth about the business of art do you work hardest to dispel in this industry? Um,
Well, for artists themselves, I think people have this idea that artists are these chaotic people,
mhm,
maybe on drugs or
mhm,
drunk or, and I'm sure that some artists are like that. But what I can tell you from experience is the most successful artists are the most professional.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
they're the ones who are fully prepared. They're very well trained in their craft. They understand materials. It's really important that things can last a long time. They understand issues like archivability.
Mhm,
And so, from their side, that's really important. From my side, just basic stuff like, accepting, getting everything to the point of a sale, making the sale happen, collecting the money for the sale, collecting the sales tax for the sale, paying the sales tax later, doing
mhm,
that kind of stuff that any business owner needs to be able to do. It's just totally about professionalism. And then the success itself, I would say, has a lot to do with how skilled the artist is, how
mhm,
skilled the artist as well as how skilled the dealer.
mhm. Yes, absolutely. You've explained to me several times of, deals that, it's teetering on non-sale or an actual sale, and it's just how skilled you are in making the sale, multi-million dollar sales. It's amazing. So you mentioned being an appraiser, and so how does rigorous analytical process of art appraisal inform your approach to running your own gallery and advising your clients?
Well, appraisal is just super fun. It's kind of like detective work. I think people who don't know much about art don't realize that the prices aren't just totally random. They're like, oh, they just put some number on there. And there are a lot of things that we use to determine a value. One of them is, we look at current asking prices for other similar works by the artist. I spend a lot of time on subscription databases for global auction data. A big one that I use a lot is ArtNet. For any of these, you can use them for free at the Hirsch Library at the Museum of Fine Arts here in Houston, which is a wonderful library. The people who work there are so overqualified and so available to help if you need anything. But before I, had all these subscriptions myself, when I was just starting out, I would go do my research there.
Mhm,
And you just look at, people are often surprised to find out, like I have works of art in my gallery right now by Andy Warhol and Pablo Picasso, and they'll say those couldn't possibly be real. They're absolutely real. There are lots of works like that available. They come in a huge range of what they are and how valuable they are.
mhm,
We have ways of understanding what they're worth, and we have ways of understanding um, if they're actually legitimate. There's a whole lot of fraud in art. With the right tools and the right knowledge base, you can do the research to feel, very confident that what you have is worth the amount that you say it is. We are trained to a certain standard. I'm in the International Society of Appraisers. The
mhm,
other big art appraisal organizations are the Appraisers Association of America and the Appraiser Society of America. We're all using the standards of USPAP. You may have heard that for real estate.
mhm,
It's the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practices established by Congress to set, standards for trust in the appraisal business. And so we all follow the same thing. We all do the same kind of research methodologies. So if you had a room full of people that were all appraisers, you gave them a work of art to appraise. Everyone went in a different room, did their own independent research, and all came back. They would all come back with pretty much the same number.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting. I'm too one of the ones that thought, okay, based on the fact that it's been created by a certain person or the length of time, but like you're saying, there's a lot of mechanisms and techniques to go into doing the
Yeah,
appraisal.
we
Yeah.
definitely see outliers. Like a one that I think is very confusing for people is art sold at charity auctions.
Hmm.
And sometimes, people just really love the charity, or maybe they love the artist who maybe has some relationship with the charity. And so, I remember hearing about a guy, and someone told me that his paintings were selling for 300,000 a
Mm.
painting. And I said, wow, that's very impressive. He's a young guy. Wow. Where does he show? Oh, he doesn't show anywhere. Well, what do you mean? What exhibitions has he been in? What? And then it turns out he had a couple of big sales at charity auctions. And I would
Hmm.
say that doesn't count.
Okay.
That because that person was willing to do it for probably some other reason. If
Hmm.
that artist's work was available out on the open marketplace, the odds that it would sell for that kind of amount are pretty low
I see. I
without
see.
any of that background behind it. Most
Yeah.
people don't, $300,000 is a whole lot of money, and
Hmm.
most people wouldn't be willing to spend that kind of money without knowing that there's going to be holding some value for the future.
Hmm.
A big thing that's very important in the art world is provenance. Is that something you've heard of?
No.
It's the history of ownership.
Okay.
So when we're selling things, like I sold a fabulous painting earlier this year by an artist named Tamara Delampika. That was just a big show of her work earlier this year at the Museum of Fine Arts. It had come from a museum in San Francisco, the De Young, and Tamara Delampika's top auction value is 21 million for a painting.
Wow.
And there are ways that we can understand if a painting is legitimate, because I know there's some great films out there. You can watch a lot of fraud and
Hmm.
fraudsters. It's super exciting to me. It's a terrible thing to do, but it's very interesting to see what people have gotten away with. But anyone can paint a picture that looks like something.
Hmm.
Someone with some skill could copy this right now and make it
Hmm.
look just like it. So how do you prove that what you have is what you think you have? And there are a lot of ways we do it. And the main one is looking at the history of the ownership of the object. So
Hmm.
my painting that I had came from the granddaughter of the artist. It was well documented. It was known that she owned it. It came with correspondence from her about the document. And importantly, it was published in something called the Catalog Raisonné for real established artists. They may have their own catalog raisonné, which is a listing of every work of art the artist ever made, with all the information, title, date, material, exhibition history, publication history, every place it's ever been, every person who's ever owned it, and where it is now.
Hmm.
And that painting that I had was in the catalog raisonné and was exactly everything as described. And it had the right labels on the back showing, its history of, where it had been. And what was
Hmm.
super exciting about the painting that I had is in the catalog raisonné, it was in black and white, and it's a color painting, and so no one had actually known what it looked like in colors. So
Hmm.
it was really fun for me that I had that. I sold it for a whole lot of money, and the person who bought it has that whole track, and I let the foundation know that she's the current owner, so it could be updated in the catalog raisonné and all that sort of thing.
Wow, this is all very fascinating as it relates to being an entrepreneur as an artist, to collecting and appraising art. So I know for a fact that you use various mechanisms in order to market art. I know that, like you said, you as an appraiser and within your gallery, you set or excuse me, you discover market value for your artist. I'm sure style and brand comes into play. But what's the most effective marketing channels would you suggest for artists to generate consistent revenue?
Well, it would probably vary by artist, but I would say in general, um, all artists should have a social media presence. If you're at an art fair and you hear about an artist or you meet an artist and you don't know their work, and you cannot know. There are too many artists, you cannot know them all. I learn new artists every single day. A real quick thing is someone would look them up on Instagram. If you're an
Okay.
artist, you should have some presence on Instagram. As a business, I'm happy to say I sold a painting, very important painting by an artist named Marsden Hartley. It came out of an estate here in Houston. It was right when the gallery was brand new, and I didn't have as established a clientele as I do now. I had put it on my Instagram that I had it and that it was available, and I got contacted by a museum in Denmark,
Wow.
the big modern art museum in Denmark, and they said, "Oh my goodness, we've never seen this painting before." And I said, "Oh, it hasn't been seen since the 1960s," which I, mentioned in my post, that is just coming out of an estate and that it had toured
Hmm.
the United States in the 60s as part of a Marsden Hartley retrospective. Marsden Hartley, for the record, was um, one of the American modern artists. We know a lot of the modern artists who were European, Picasso being one of them. Those big names, but in the United States, the big ones were Marsden Hartley and Georgia O'Keeffe, both of whom have, auction values that are through the stratosphere. Well, the museum said, we're having a Marsden Hartley retrospective. We would love to we're putting on a catalog with it, a hardcover book. We'd love to have images for it and information for our publication. Do you think that would be possible? And I said, it would be possible, but why don't you just buy it? And
Yeah.
and they did. So
Mhm.
it worked out great. It was in the exhibition. It was in the book. If you come to my gallery, I can show you. It's been published now. That's super fun for me. But for me personally, I do a lot with my mailing list. I have a list of over 3,000 subscribers to my mailing list. I try not to reach out to them too often, but I put on about 8 shows a year, and for each show, I might have a couple of mailings, and I might send out one or two if something really exciting has happened. I think recently Linda Hoffheinz, who I represent, we placed one of her paintings at the University of St. Thomas. Uh, it's looking at the Chapel of St. Basil, designed by Philip Johnson in the Philip Johnson Mall at that beautiful, beautiful university. And it's a portrait of the first biracial saint. Uh, and it's St. Martin de Porres. So we did a special mailing just to let our friends and followers of our gallery know that Linda had done this amazing painting and that it was um, part of the collection now at University of St. Thomas. We do that sort of thing. And I actually use LinkedIn a lot. Um,
Okay.
a lot of my collectors are, you don't have to have a lot of money to buy art, but a lot of people who have a lot of money do buy art.
Mhm.
And they tend to be professional. And a lot of my clients, and certainly that is how I communicate a lot with museums and museum curators. And I spend a lot of time looking at analytics. I'm still on Facebook. Some people think it's old-fashioned, but a lot of my clients are very active on Facebook. So
Mhm.
I do a lot with that. On occasion, I take out ads. I wish I had more money to take out ads, but it's something I've used. We do get a lot of publicity in publications like Paper City, which is
Mhm.
a lot of people, speaking of Linda Hoffheinz, her show was the featured art story for that month, and we're several times a year we're mentioned in that magazine in some capacity. One of my shows made the front page of the Houston Chronicle. Uh,
Wow.
it was a TSU, Texas Southern University, has an amazing reputation as an art school, and some really important artists of color have come out of that school and been associated with that school,
Mhm.
including Kermit Oliver and Dr. John Biggers, two artists whose works I've handled. And my show for a collector named Andy Moran, his son is the jazz musician Jason Moran, probably the most famous student to graduate from the Kinder High School for the Visual and Performing Arts. He's a Grammy Award-winning musician. Um,
Mhm.
the whole family is just super creative and art loving, and that show was about liquidating works from his collection, and it made the front page of the Chronicle. And it was the first time that I came to the gallery, and when I got to the gallery, there was a line of people to get in.
Wow. Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah.
So this, one of two of my final questions. It, for those individuals who are collectors, what should they need to know about art handling, the art world that either they want to start collecting or they've been collecting? What should they know?
Great question. Okay, so for beginners, if you've never bought anything, go to a lot of galleries. go to museums, look at a lot of art, figure out what you like. And sometimes people come in my gallery. I keep my door locked because I have a lot of very valuable things in there, and I'm required to, per my insurance, if I'm in there by myself, which I often am. I have a little thing that says, please ring bell, and I feel bad that it makes people feel they're not welcome. In no way do I mean to exclude anyone. It's just that's what I do. I've got a whole lot in there. Uh,
Security, yes.
Yes, so as a result, I greet everyone at the door,
Mhm.
and I strive to make everyone feel welcome, no matter who they are and what they look like. Sometimes I'll be talking to someone, and I can see they're having a great time hearing about what I have, and I do know how to talk about our art very well because I've worked at 3 museums, and I learned from some really terrific people how to talk about art. But sometimes I'll have someone say like, "Oh, like just so you know, I'm not going to buy anything." And I say, nobody walks through the door who I don't know, who's never bought anything before and buys something. I can probably count on one hand how many times it's happened. Uh,
Mhm.
it's very rare. Most people need to spend time. They go to galleries, they kind of figure out the ones that they like, sort of like you buy clothes. What are your favorite stores? What are the ones that always have the stuff that you like? Don't ever feel like anyone is pressuring you to buy. If someone is not interested in engaging with you in a conversation, it's probably not the gallery for you.
Mhm.
If there's someone working there who I found out recently that someone who worked in a gallery, he came in my gallery, and with the questions that he asked, I could just tell he had a very low knowledge about the business in general. But he
Mhm.
worked at an art gallery, and I asked him what his background was, and he told me that he was the dog walker for the people who own the gallery. And I was horrified to hear that because you have to have a lot of knowledge to be able to sell art. And this is a
Mhm.
gallery that has, you know, individual works of art in the tens of thousands of dollars. Like I would not want to buy a work of art from a dog walker. That's just,
Mhm.
I would say talk to people who make you feel good. Don't ever let anyone talk you into anything. Occasionally, people approach me with art they want to sell, and I love looking at original receipts. I love looking at past inventories. And I might get a receipt and I say, oh, you bought this in the past 5 years. For the record, flipping is really bad. If you flip original art, you'll probably never be invited back to that gallery again. It's a terrible thing to do to a gallery and to an artist. Um, but, I'll say, well,
When you say flipping, what do you mean by flipping?
buying something with the intention to resell it for a higher value someplace else.
Okay, understood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big no-no. And
Okay, in the art world. Okay. Okay.
especially for what's called primary market art. That's art that's just been made. So I have a show up, which if we have time, I'll tell you about, but it's
Sure.
artist Susan Budge. I know you know her work.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say I love that
cool.
necklace.
Yeah, yeah. But so this is primary market art. Like I have works of art in my inventory. Like I mentioned, Warhol, Picasso, Damien Hirst, a lot of big names, and like that's a different thing. If you buy something, get a good deal, sell it somewhere else, get a good deal, But to buy art with the intention of selling it someplace else for more is really not to be done. But I'll say to someone, "Why are you selling it already?" And they'll say something like, "Well, we never really liked it."
Mhm.
And I'll say, "Well, if you never really liked it, why did you buy it?" And they'll say something like, "Well, the dealer told us that we'd be fools if we didn't buy it, or the dealer told us, we'd never get a deal like this again, or put some sort of pressure." And I feel like getting a work of art is kind of like getting a dog. It's a pretty big commitment. You're going to live with it. You're going to have it a long time. You should want it.
Mhm.
So what I like is usually, sometimes, especially for people, my existing clients who know me, I just had a great event last night. Sold a lot of art last night, and
Yeah.
the biggest, most expensive work I sold was to clients who I've already sold a lot of big, expensive art to. In general, like you got to start somewhere, and most people start with something little. But I love that call on a Sunday morning, like, hey, sorry to bug you on a Sunday morning. We're still thinking about that piece. Is it still available? Yes. Could we look at it? Yes. When would you like to see it? I live 8 minutes from the gallery. Like I'll say, do you want to see it now? And I kind of love showing up, not ready for the day because I want to get there when they're interested. And it's sort of fun for everybody when we do it
Mhm.
that way. But if you go in a gallery and you go to an opening, and you buy something and you buy it at the opening, you might pay for it last night. Some people paid for the art last night, or you
Mhm.
might say, send me a bill.
Mhm.
It's very common in the art world. And so I'll send them an invoice and then they'll pay it, however they're going to pay it. People often pay by check. I still take checks. I'm very old school. People pay by credit card, and people for more expensive stuff generally wire. If you walk in a gallery and you see a work of art with a red dot next to it, it means it's sold.
Okay.
When a work of art is sold out of a show, it generally doesn't go home until the show is over. So it's not like you go in, buy it, they wrap it up for you, take it home. When you buy something, especially if it's bigger, in general, you need professional art handling and delivery. Depending on the situation, and each of my works of art sort of has its own unique situation. I handle professional art handling and installation. I'm always there. I oversee it myself. I make sure that we're putting something in the right place, that it shouldn't be around, maybe an air duct or whatever it is. I help place it. I help with guidance with lighting and all of that. A reason to buy a work of art from a gallery versus at an auction or an art fair, when you buy something, especially at an auction, like it's yours. If
Mhm.
it gets to you and it turns out you don't like it, it didn't look the way you thought it would, it's yours. You're
Mhm.
done. Sometimes I handle things for people when they bought something at auction and they didn't end up liking it.
Mhm.
When you buy something at a gallery, you can take it on approval. We can send it out to your house and try it in the space, and if it turns out you don't like it, you don't have to take it.
Mhm.
So it's a good reason. It's good to have a relationship with a gallery.
Mhm.
Most people have their favorites. I know I do. I shop at other galleries, not just my own. And so I look at it as a long term. I love
Mhm.
helping people who don't know anything become really confident collectors. We have a
Mhm.
party tomorrow night. With clients that I built their collection. It's a very valuable collection, and we built it over years. And
Mhm.
um, for several of my clients, we've had their homes published. Some people like that. It can make your art, it can have a positive impact on the future value of your art to have it in Paper City or Architectural Digest or something like that.
Mhm.
So, lots of factors. But
Yeah.
if you come in and you spend a few $100s, I do have some things that are that inexpensive. I'm delighted, because we have to start somewhere. And
Yeah.
usually most people don't walk in and go for something really big when they haven't bought anything from me
Mhm.
before.
Yeah, and I know in your gallery you don't just have paintings and artwork on the wall. You have uh, um, statues and fixtures and pendants and all types of art. It's not
Oh, yeah.
just exclusive to the
Yeah.
paintings and
Oh,
things
yes.
like
We
that.
have paintings, drawings, prints, photography,
Mhm.
so all kinds of sculpture out of all kinds of materials. We have things that hang from the ceiling. We have
Mhm.
all kinds of things.
Yeah, it's so exciting, and you alternate your or change out your shows pretty often. How often in a year?
I have about 8 shows a year.
Okay.
The summer one is usually up all summer. Some people say they hate the summer because their sales are low in the summer
Mhm.
because everyone is off on vacation. I personally love the summer. I
Mhm.
always do well in the summer. My summer is dedicated to the secondary market. Sometimes I think coming up in the summer of 2026, it's going to be the basis for the show. And for the record, I'm booked years out.
Mhm.
Um, uh, there's someone who was very well known in the community who passed away, who had a very well known, very valuable collection. And I think the basis for my secondary market summer will be his collection, works from his collection, many of which have gone on to museums. These are what the estate has chosen to liquidate. I work with a lot of very well known collectors. Jerry Ann Chaney, who's very well known in Houston, had two shows at the Museum of Fine Arts about her collection with her family. Uh,
Hmm.
in 2007, it was the YBA Young British Artists. If you've ever seen like the big Damien Hirst medicine cabinet, it's part of the Museum of Fine Arts permanent collection. That was hers. That show and the Red Hot Contemporary Asian Art Show in 2008, two very large shows with catalogs and everything at the museum. Those were shows of their family's personal collection. And after her husband passed away, I helped her liquidate. We put on a terrific show, and um, a lot of the things I do have a charitable component. And this one, I knew that she was giving a portion of the proceeds to the Houston Arts Alliance Emergency Relief Fund, which helped artists during the pandemic. And they have an emergency relief fund for artists who need some extra help financially. And she ended up giving 100% of the proceeds from that show. Everything that was in that show had shown in the Museum of Fine Arts,
Yeah.
and she gave 100% of the proceeds to that charity. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. It's also very fascinating, and I would love for you to share with us another time, maybe in the summer when you have the summer coming up, the summer show coming up. Any upcoming events? So you said you have a show tomorrow night?
Yeah, so on December 6th is the opening of I'm such a good collector. I happen to have this right in
Mhm.
front of me. I didn't even plan it. It's always sitting right here. This is, you know, Susan's work. This is,
Mhm.
I shouldn't have left the window open there.
Mhm.
This is one of her sculptures. She's in 10 museums.
Mhm.
Not all of her work has the eye motif, but what I happen to have on right now does. We have some very large outdoor things. She has works that are in ceramic, stoneware, cast stainless steel, bronze, even as small as, I don't know if you can see these.
The earrings. Oh, okay.
This is ceramic and porcelain with real white gold glaze, which is into the material. It's baked in the kiln, so it's always shiny like this. But she has works at Lady Bird Johnson Park and Brackenridge Park, which is sort of like Herman Park in San Antonio, like big monumental outdoor things. She has some
Mhm.
stainless steel sculptures up on Heights Boulevard right now. They kind of look like Kachinas. Uh,
Mhm.
that's my show that's up right now. We'll have a special jewelry show for her before Christmas and Hanukkah, and then that show will be up through January 10th. And
Mhm.
we have just a wonderful series of events throughout the year. The shows all open along with all the other galleries in Houston's oldest gallery row. We coordinate our openings together since the 1970s. So
Wow.
it's a fun art walk about every 6 weeks.
Wow. And so to find out more about your upcoming events, would they look for you on LinkedIn, your website?
Yep, I'm very easy to find. It's intentional. My name is Heidi, Heidi. My last name is Vaughn, Vaughan, fine art. But I understand if you just Google Heidi and art, you'll be able to find me pretty easily if you don't remember my last name. And I am happy to talk on the phone, text,
Mhm.
email, all that. And if you get on my mailing list, which you can do through my website, HeidiVaughnFineArt.com. You'll be invited to everything that we do.
No, that's great. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Heidi, for teaching us what we need to know about being an artist in the Houston area. Uh, Finding value in the art that we do or are interested in, as well as being a collector. All great things that we all should know in the small business community. Um, we at SCORE want to help entrepreneurs, all entrepreneurs. And if you happen to be an artist, check us out at score.org/Houston. And we'll look forward to uh, seeing Heidi in the near future as it relates to her shows.
Jada,
Yes.
we go, I would like to add that I am involved with the Small Business Administration and SCORE
Yeah.
in particular.
Yes.
And SCORE helped me so much during the pandemic. I made a video about it, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago or 4 months ago, something like that. But I really think if it hadn't been for SCORE, especially Bill Horwitz, my SCORE mentor who was helping me at that time. SCORE really helped me get some funding that I desperately needed. I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to survive the pandemic. It was a very tough time to be in business, and I got just terrific advice, and everyone I work with over there is, I'm working with people who are successful at some of the highest levels of business, who know things that I don't know and really help me. And I don't pay for that, it's free. And I always recommend to people that they check it out and see what SCORE can do for them.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. And having our SCORE clients helps us to be better mentors. And Heidi, for sure, your business has tremendously affected how our SCORE mentors have been able to contribute to the community, businesses like yours. So thank you so much again for the webinar today, and we look forward to seeing you in the future.
I'm so grateful to you, and I
Yes.
look forward to seeing everybody at my gallery.
Yeah, absolutely.